Hello, Internet world. Today we're going to talk about how our agency approaches web dev. So what you're going to come away with is best practices for strategizing a whole website project from beginning to end. And today we have a very special guest, the digital elevator lead dev and graphic designer, a right-hand man, $1 million man, brisket man out in Texas, Rob Hatch.
Hey guys. Glad to be here, Dan. Thanks for inviting me into your special inner sanctum.
Yeah, that's right. So bringing Rob in for that expert perspective. He leads all of our web dev projects as well as our master graphic designer. So he's kind of the full direction and works hand in hand with our SEO team for all of our projects. So we've built out a whole process for website projects from beginning to end. And we thought that would be a great thing to share with the web world. And maybe people will learn some things along the way. We should say before we kick into this is that other agencies might be doing this differently. They might have different processes. If you have comments on that, we welcome them. But this is how we do it over here, and it works for us and it works for our clients, and process makes perfect. So that's part of the game here. So what we're going to learn is the kind of process we have laid out, where we have that laid out, things about a client questionnaire, how we get assets from the client, the stages we take along the way that we map out, where the approvals come from, testing, all that kind of stuff, client handout, going live, and Q&A, quality assurance, that kind of thing. So let's just dive right into this thing, and we'll let Rob field the questions here. So first and foremost, our process we lay out, we use project management software. We like to use Teamwork. We used to use Basecamp. And this has been kind of our go-to because we can put all of our tasks in the software and then allocate them to certain employees or clients, and then everybody's held accountable. So what do you think about using a project management software, and what's its importance, Rob?
Well, it really helps us keep organized. We've got a lot of things going all the time. And so, since we have multiple clients that we're managing not only SEO, but we're managing some of their day-to-day website updates or development that they've got, it really helps us internally as a team keep on track. And also the details that go into that, we're not having to call each other and to try to figure out what one of our other teammates means when they actually, push a task our way, because we're dealing with, again, a lot of SEO related tasks that actually morph into web development. So it's easy for us to actually have a system like Teamwork in place. So we're not asking a lot of questions. And if we do need to ask questions, we're not trying to, call each other or track each other down, because we can do it right there. So it's been really actually very helpful for us to have a system like this in place.
Right. The other thing I like about Teamwork in particular is that we have templatized our process, and then when a new project comes in, we just port it over to their project, and then everything's there, and give or take a couple tasks, we can add or remove a couple items, but it doesn't leave things up to memory, which I think
that's right.
When you have this many clients and this many things going on, you're not going to remember to do everything. And, we're always adding to that process and improving it over time. And we've probably been working on this specific process, what do you say, 2 years, 3 years?
Yeah, probably maybe? Probably 2.5 years. And it's really gotten refined so that anybody on the team, on the dev team, can take it and run with it. And we have certain tasks that are delegated to certain members of our dev team so that they know what's coming, as well as in our SEO team after we've actually launched the site, they know what's coming as well. So it's all a part of our template that we've put together to help us from A to Z. From setup to launch.
Okay, so first stage is we set up that process, bring the tasks into Teamwork, and then we have a client questionnaire. So what do you think that we actually started creating a client questionnaire and like what kind of stuff on there is really helpful for us in the
Well, the client questionnaire has been one of the most critical things that I think we've done as far as web development, because it's hard to, it's been hard to figure out what a client actually likes and wants and what they believe that their mission and their goal or end goal for a website is. And so in that client questionnaire process, we're asking things like, define your business, define the different things that separate you and make you different from your competitor. But not only that, we're asking questions like, what types of websites do you like? What kinds of design do you like? Where do you want to see this go? And so it's really helps us get their overall idea of what they're kind of envisioning. And we've had clients fill this out, and it take us like on a journey into what they're actually foreseeing, and it helps us to, from the get-go, begin to design around what we know they're going to like. Now we do have our creative ideas and things like that, but we're able to help get them what they're actually looking for in the long run. So it's been just getting those questions from them, getting some understanding of what they're actually looking for. It's really, really been helpful.
Yeah, I like it too, because we always have conversations with them on the phone or on Zoom or whatnot, and then we get them to write down these answers. And we have it in writing as an agency too, so we can also share that internally for those team members that maybe weren't on some of those calls. And then it also makes the clients just kind of think through things. And then also part of that, which is a good tip, is this is also a stage where they provide logins and passwords, and they let us know other things, subject matter experts, other team members' assets. If they have writers or whatnot, they divulge all that stuff in that content, and then we can always point back to that and say, hey, you said you had this. Where's that at? So okay, so we have those first two things. It's very preliminary, kind of that research onboarding stages of the web dev. So we haven't even done anything yet. We're just kind of getting an idea what the client likes. We're researching the aesthetics that they like, getting that idea. And then now we are trying to say, okay, now we can put all this stuff together and start thinking about how we're going to design this thing. So on our end, we gather design assets, branding guidelines from the clients. Hopefully they have them. Some even big brands sometimes don't have this stuff, which is really surprising in this day and age. So branding guidelines, logos, fonts, images that they have. We of course ask for that stuff and have them send it to us either through our project management software or through a zip file or something, what have you. And then, so this is really important, staging. We move the site into, we create a staging environment, and this is something that we self-host. Most of our clients we host if they want, and then we keep it on a nice staging environment. So what would you tell other dev agencies, or maybe solopreneurs that are doing dev and maybe don't have a staging environment? What role does that play?
We've actually been in a couple of hairy situations where because of the environment that we were working in, found ourselves like, oh crap, did I just push that button accidentally and push everything live? But what we've done is we've said, okay, we're going to actually step back and we're going to do something on a completely different URL for our sanity. Does that make sense?
Yeah, we just keep it. It's sometimes good when the client doesn't see anything yet, because otherwise they're nitpicking. Oh, you need to change that. I don't like the padding. It's okay, it's not done yet. Relax. And then the other thing is the security standpoint. You can back it up. So, and we also have, which is nice with our hosting provider, our partner, is that we can templatize plugins, because we specialize in WordPress. We mentioned that. We specialize in WordPress. So if we want Yoast and a bunch of other pre-built plugins that we prefer and that we have tested, that we know are up to date, we're considering all that in our staging environment, and as devs and dev team, we have to consider WordPress updates. We have to consider the hosting. We have to consider the plugins, all these different things that can often conflict with each other, because it's all, the beauty WordPress can also be its downfall. So that's staging button is that really protective layer that that we like to put up, and just it's just the right thing to do. I mean, you should always, if you're not doing staging, that's what we do. So you can set up staging at any point. I mean, right when you get a client, it just lives there. It's ready to go. But now we're going to start talking about our next phases of web dev, where we actually start getting into the real mapping of the strategy. And typically, I mean, these things that we're talking about here, the questionnaire, the template on project management, setting up the staging environment, these things all can happen fairly quickly. Hopefully in that first week, we get that feedback and that kind of back and forth with the client to get an idea of what they like. And then now we're moving on to some things that might take a little bit longer. So depending on the size of the site, this one is very, very important, is the sitemap. So we go, the dev team always has worked hand in hand with the SEO team. I think generally the SEO team kind of dictates the sitemap, and we have feedback of, how we want things, the header, maybe the pre-header, that's what you guys call it. If we want things constructed like that. So, and then what's nice about the sitemap is it also gives the client a visual, rather than like a bullet list. And we're saying, this is how things are going to go. So, what software do you use for the sitemap and the wireframe, which we'll get into in a second?
For the sitemap and the wireframe, we use Adobe XD. It just helps us to get like you said, for the client, a good visual to see what's going to happen in the top navigation, that pre-header navigation. Sometimes you have phone numbers or a specific call to action, or maybe a client login for if it's a software company or something like that. And then you have your main navigation and all the pages that are going to fall underneath that. And to me, it's like a critical part of the process, because we want to know what to expect as far as the overall build out from page to page, and we don't want to and we want the client to know that as well. We want them to know like, here's the pages that we are expecting to build out, and so we put them all in one format in that sitemap. And then they can come back to us and say, hey, we don't necessarily need this page, or they come back and say, we need these additional pages. So it helps, create an overall, site structure for us to kind of build off of, and for them to sign off on. So it's really helpful. And those things, they fluctuate, because sometimes a project takes, it could take a while. And so they might come up with new pages and new content. So we have something to refer to that we can even add to in the process as we're building out their site. So I love the sitemap, and we do use Adobe XD to do that. And we build out the wireframe in that as well.
Yeah. And we can send, the other thing that's cool about that software, we can send them a link. So it's cloud-based, and then the sitemap and the wireframe can sit basically side by side in that software. I mean, we don't deliver both at the same time. We get approval on the sitemap, and then we move to the wireframe. But that's what's cool about that software. It's just, we can send them a link, we can send them a PDF. We move at the speed of business, so we want clients to be able to interact. And then it's also nice to refer back to, because sometimes they need to share it internally or whatever.
Absolutely. I refer back to it all the time especially when we start our initial designs, because we're going to be looking at the sitemap, we're going to be looking at the wireframe, whether we're sending it to our design team to mock out as far as design, or whether we're starting to do development internally, we're going to need both that sitemap and that wireframe to refer to.
Yeah. So another interesting thing about the sitemap that you mentioned is that sometimes we say, we'll probably be building these pages, or we recommend you build these pages. We're always talking about user experience and other thing, making suggestions to clients to make the web. That's what they rely on us for. Sometimes they don't know. So, we educate them. We say, hey, you probably should be building these pages. Your competitors are. We did the keyword research, whatever, if that's part of it. And that's what's interesting. I guess the client thinking about all the things that they need. Maybe we say, hey, you need an FAQ page. That might be really helpful for the conversations we've had. You said, people ask, or you need a better about us page or individual bio pages, because team members are really popular and they get searched too, the search volume. So all those things are really cool. And then, we get the approval on the sitemap. that's usually pretty quick. I mean, we usually try to wrap up that sitemap process in the first 2 weeks of engaging with the client. And the wireframe. So tell me a little bit about where we draw inspiration from the wireframe and some of the things that we commonly use in there.
So, we've built a lot of websites over the last years. And so a lot of the wireframe inspiration has come from previous websites that we've built. And just knowing certain types of tricks to have a really good user experience into a sales funnel. And so that's the whole goal of any website, is to get your product sold. And so we try to create our wireframes from the home page down into a sales funnel for a person. And so, we understand what needs to be above the fold. We understand that, we need to have a call to action. We need to, the client or the potential customer to know exactly what the product is and what it does really quickly. And so as we build out a wireframe, we try to address all that. We try to address social proof. Is this product something that has been, proven out there in the marketplace so far? And if so, how can we show that? And so whether that's a testimonial or whether that's a partnership that they have with another large company or companies, we try to prove that. Yeah. And so we want to do that in the wireframe. And what a wireframe basically looks like is boxes with, okay, here's our main heading, here's our main hero, here's our main call to action, here's our social proof, here's some testimonials, here's our services. And so, just over time, we feel like we've really refined, how we as a company like to see that progress.
Yeah. So now I guess we're pretty much through that. You can say, I think that's a lot of phase one stuff for us. We try, we can work through that stuff pretty quick, depending on the back and forth from the client. But, it is a lot of work there right up front. And you're probably saying, wow, we just spent so much time talking about nothing's even happened on the web dev side, but that's why it's so important to plan. And, we should also mention here that we build 5-page sites and we build 500-page sites. We build huge sites, and all this planning is really important because we build scalable websites. And we've had clients that have started with 10-page websites that are now 80, and not including the blogs. So these things are scalable, and that's why it's good to map these things out very early, because if they're going to engage with this on the SEO front, then we're going to be building a lot of pages, and that's why I like.
Yeah, we got the 5 Ps. The 5 Ps. Prior preparation prevents poor performance.
Right.
And so the more we prepare for what's coming, the better we're going to perform in the end.
Right.
On the website. Yeah.
So now is when we kind of get to the fun part of this, and rather than going straight to dev, we do mockups. So we do graphic design mockups. Typically, we're doing homepage, and then we're going to do an internal page, like a service page or a product page. We do more probably non-e-commerce sites than we do e-commerce sites. So I'll say service page. So how do you go about doing the graphic design mockups, and why don't we just go straight to dev?
Well, the first thing we do is we go back to that client questionnaire. We go back to, hey, what is the client like? Everybody's different. Every client we have is different. Some that we would think, man, they would really like this, this clean, white space, kind of Apple-esque. We like that design. They might not like that design. And so we want to give them what they're going to like, but what's also appropriate to their industry. So we go back to that client questionnaire. We find out what they like as a client. And then we take all that information and we put it into practice, into design. So we take that. We do have a design team that we have that takes that initial information and they build out a graphic mock. And they'll come back to us internally as a team, and we'll massage it a little bit to make sure that it's exactly what our clients are going to like, and then we'll send it to our clients to get feedback from them. But it takes all of the sitemap and the wireframe into in as well, from what we've already gathered, and it kind of moves forward from there. So they all build off of each other. So we've got the client questionnaire, we've got their design, we've got the site map, so we know what pages that we're going to put into that top navigation, and then we've got our wireframe that's been built, so we know what call to actions, and we know what kind of social proof. So then we begin to build out a design around that. And so it is actually the fun part, because it's when you get to actually start being creative as a designer and a developer. Yeah,
and it allows the client to have input before you spend time doing dev too. So we might spend a day or two doing the graphic design in terms of man hours versus 2 or 3 days doing what we think is cool.
Right.
Because we've done both before. We've gone straight to dev before, way back in the day, and sometimes that hit or miss. And the graphic design mockups, we usually just do one. We've definitely done multiple homepage iterations before for certain clients, but we kind of feel like that complicates things. It's kind of the analysis paralysis. So it can be cool if you can get the client to pay for it, they have a budget for multiple iterations. But it's a really good standpoint, because that's now they see the thing come to life and it's visual, and if they approve it or just have a couple little changes here and there, then we can make them. And then, we always get sign off before we move forward. And then, for other agency owners or who might get into scope, what we call scope creep, which is every agency owner is going through this, is like, oh, well, you signed off on it and we did what, and then for you can build more, say you're out of scope, we have to build, and these things happen. So this is why all this process is also very important, because scope creep is real. People like to make changes that are outside the scope, and there's only so many hours in the day, and you have other clients, so it's just something to be cautious of. Now, after the approvals of the mock-up, we move to dev. Pretty self-explanatory there. That really takes the bulk of our time in these whole process, especially depending on the size of the site. People are always think, you just copy and paste text and it's easy. That's not the case. People think that copy and pasting is easy, but even if we templatize pages, that's something that we should talk about, because that really saves a lot of time and it gets things right, especially when we're talking about responsive design, desktop, tablet, cell phones, all these things. And there's really hundreds of devices we have to consider. And it's with WordPress, it's impossible to do everything. You kind of are limited by those 3 buckets in vertical tablet design only, not horizontal tablet design, which throws a lot of clients off, because we find like a lot of baby boomer type clients love tablets, and you look at their analytics and it might be 2 or 3% of their traffic, but you got to design for everybody. So the dev portion is important. Other than the self-explanatory dev stuff, let's talk about templates and like how we've approached maybe doing like a service page template, like design the first one,
right,
and then saying, okay, cool, this is beautiful, this is what we want to do, and then saving it and duplicating it, so to speak.
Yeah. So going back to the wireframe, every company has certain specific services they do, and they all pretty much fall in web design under the same type of format. So what we try to do is we try to make sure that every page that a person goes to has the same feel. So it might not have the same graphics, it might not have the same photography, but at least it feels consistent from page to page. So we build out templates that allow our dev team to actually work faster, and everything stays consistent from page to page. So we might build out something that has, something pretty unique graphically for one particular page, but on the next page you might not need that type of graphic or that type of look and feel, but at least it's going to be consistent from page to page as far as design and layout. So again, it all starts with that. It all starts with that wireframe, and that we get the customer to sign off on.
Yeah, and I think a lot of stuff that you guys spend time on in terms of the template is padding, margins,
right,
the white space in between certain sections, and then every page might have a little bit longer text and you just can't slap it in. Sometimes it needs a little bit more massaging, but the template does kind of provide that framework to say, okay, this is the box we're trying to live in. And then if we have to go outside that box for a page, we can, but it's just, if the company has like 6 service pages, boom, we duplicate it 6 times, update the URL, put the text in there to take a look at the overall aesthetic of the whole page. And it's much faster than trying to do it by memory or something, or say, how much padding, 40 or 50 pixels there, that kind of thing. So that's.
Yeah. And that's, like you mentioned earlier, when we build out that template, we build it out for mobile and then we build it out for tablet. So from page to page in all of those different devices, it's going to be consistent.
Yeah. And another thing that's been really cool, kind of somewhat newer with WordPress, and we've been using the Breezy builder a lot lately, is the option to do global, global decks, where it's like we can just have one section, maybe just the footer, call to action, or a testimonial that we want to reuse, and we save that, and then we can put it on other pages if we want to. It's preloaded. You don't have to redesign it. And the other thing's cool is if you change it or you alter it later down the road, you're like, maybe they wanted a different picture, a different testimonial. We go and change the global, and then all the pages it's on, that changes there. We've definitely had projects that did not have that technology where it's like, well, hey, now you have to change the testimonial and the picture on every single page that was on before. And that's just killing man hours. The name of the game is as quick as possible, as efficient as possible. The less money we're spending is the more money we make. And so we're always looking for efficiency tricks. And that's why we really like this Breezy page builder.
Yeah.
But so the dev process, we go through all that, all the bells and whistles, as much as possible, we templatize. And then, we do our tried and true contact pages or about us pages. There's not, too much craziness going on there. Just depends on the overall, matching the overall aesthetic of the site. So now we go into alpha and beta testing. So why don't you explain what alpha testing is internally, and then why we moved to external beta testing rather than trying to do beta internally?
Right. So alpha testing is something that we do internally. So once we feel that the website is complete, then we take our dev team and we start going through the site page by page, not only in desktop, but we do it also in mobile and tablet, just to make sure that everything is in place and everything looks good. Everything is as high quality as it can be. And then we actually go from there to a beta testing mode where we actually have outside testers come in and test. And now it depends on how big the site is. If we have just a 15-page website, then we might have, a testing team of 10. But if we have a 250-page website, then we have multiple testers do it. And we use different proprietary softwares out there, or not softwares, but businesses out there that do that for a living. And it's really been beneficial because they actually just do a lot of cross testing of different browsers and different devices. And so it really helps us to not just look internally, but you have a broad group that are looking at it on multiple different devices. And a lot of the feedback that we're getting from our beta testers is that are little small things like the period's missing, or you might need a comma right here. And a lot of the times we get our content from our clients, so we're actually doing some cleanup even in that respect for them, where they might have missed something in content. But yeah, it's a really good process. And then what we'll do is we'll take all of our beta testing data or our comments back, and then we'll internally take those and we'll make the changes that they suggest.
That's a new thing we've been doing, and I think that's been really good. Sometimes you're just too close to a project when you're a small team of devs. We're pretty boutique, and having third party look, and that's the beauty, like you said, like they're doing the standard clicking every link to make sure it goes where it says it's going to go, where it's supposed to go. But they're also doing cross browser, cross device. We can't possibly have every device. It's not possible. It would be, you need a whole device lab We find that the softwares that you can do cross-browser testing and then cross-device testing on software, but sometimes it's just not the same as an actual device. So we always, when possible, try to do stuff on our own phones. But even then, it's it's not going to communicate across every single device. And Androids, Apples, whatever. People have different things, and that's not going away. That's going to continue to get harder for dev teams. So that's why beta, at least you minimize some of that risk of little bugs here and there that you'll find out later. And and I think we build that into our process as well. Like clients need to understand as well that you're not just going to hand off this beautiful, seamless website. Certainly not trying to pass the buck, but we expect little bugs here and there. Things don't work. We got to test the forms, and sometimes their email servers will block it, and it worked in testing, but it didn't work on the live site, or whatever. The client went in and broke something, and so we have a nice bug detection and iteration process that we try to build in. I think we do, depending on the size of the site, is how big we make it. We generally do a couple of weeks where the client's allowed to make changes before it's now pay for service or part of an ongoing dev requirement. And so after all this stuff done, now we're handing it off the whole staging site to the client with a login, and then they can do their whole review. We encourage them to also somewhat beta it on their end. And some clients will spend more time doing this than others, for sure. Some will trust you. They trust you rather than actually going through and looking at links. And sometimes they want to change. But sometimes now they want to change content, and that's kind of a no-no. Like, hey, you should have done this before this thing started. We asked for that, and those are just some of the communication things that we have with these clients, where we try to get all this stuff up front, and then back and forth with the client there, where they're gonna tell us what final changes are, and then we go live, and we put it on our servers, or if they're sophisticated enough to point the DNS to the new site or migrate the site themselves, they go live there. And then at that point, a lot of the SEO team comes in, regardless if it's going to be an SEO project, and we just make sure analytics is tracking, it's getting indexed by search engines, and then other relevant SEO team processes. And then we're more or less done with the projects from there. And then, that whole plan kind of works really well. And when we stick to it, I think that's why we've been so successful. We've probably built, 200 sites together at this point, all WordPress. And
crazy. Yeah.
Now we're building bigger websites and less, because all these process things that we do tend to be a little bit more expensive, and they're not, they don't fit for everybody, and a lot of people want a DIY site, and those aren't our clients. But that's it. I think that was a good overview of what it looks like to do web dev from an agency perspective. And this is just WordPress. We're not talking about all custom software and crazy stuff that the website does. We certainly can integrate with that stuff, but that's for a different conversation. So thank you, Rob, for your time and your expertise, and looking forward to my next brisket meal sometime soon.
Come on, man. Come on.
Well,
I can't wait.
Good job.
All right.
Bye.
All right. Bye.